Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing NiER Automata on the Nintendo Switch, one of those impossible ports, and you might be asking yourself, why is it an impossible port? I mean, it's not like it's photorealistic or anything. Well, this game actually has a global illumination thing going on, that's why it's so demanding on the last gen consoles, and well, the PC port was terrible. So the fact that it runs on Switch kind of blows my mind, so that's why it's an impossible port. It's locked to 30 FPS. Docked mode, like we're doing right now, is has a target of 1080p, but it rarely hits 1080p when we're playing the game. So it has a dynamic resolution, but we're going to try without overclock, then with overclock, then we're going to try a 6 FPS target. As you can see, there's a lot of pop in, like right now. But I mean, the fact that this is targeting 1080p on the Nintendo Switch blows my mind. So what I'm going to do is some combat running around the open world, and I'm going to show you how to target 60s. The game basically runs at 30. It's not solid 30 at all times. There are sections where it drops into the upper 20s. But I have like 10 videos on this game, on the PC version, on the Steam Deck. If you want to check those out, I'm showing you a very brief moment on the screen. On the Steam Deck, you can actually make it run at 6 FPS, which is quite impressive. But anyway, in the open world, it's basically 30. The CPU is almost maxed out, and well, the GPU as well. So how do we unlock the frame rate? Well, we go into cheats, and we have a 6 FPS mod. So we enable that so the dynamic resolution doesn't lock us at 30 FPS. And looking at it with the unlock frame rate, it's still 30 FPS, 32. So what we're going to do is some overclocking, first of all. So we override the GPU to 998, we overclock the CPU as well. So we were CPU bound as well. And now with the overclock, wow, we jumped to 35 FPS, insane. Okay, so how do we fix this? So we go to reverse NXRT, and we can force handheld resolution in docked mode. So now we're targeting 720p instead of 1080p. And now with this mod enabled and the handheld resolution, we got 60 FPS. It won't be perfect. We're going to be mostly, well, CPU and GPU bound. As you can see, some of the foliage is completely black. Well, that's because the global illumination is pared back a lot. I think they rebuilt that from the ground up. So we're going to do some combat and see if we can maintain 60s. As you can see, running around even, we're already dropping frames. But the game is way smoother. Also way, way lower resolution. So I disabled music for copyright reasons, unfortunately. And I shouldn't do this, but I'll do it anyway.
What the? Wow, this is weird.
Yeah, too much happiness. I cannot do that. Also, if you didn't know, if you have a lot of damage, you can wake up this bunny. But as you can see, it drops into the 40s pretty often. It's not a perfect 60. It's more like playing on a PC with an uncapped frame rate, with a maximum of 60 FPS. But it's going to drop frames no matter what. Anyway, I'm not going to keep fighting that thing. But as you can see, when you're fighting explosions, even the GPU isn't maxed out. It drops to 80%. So we're mostly CPU limited, unfortunately. So in this case, if you don't mind the 40 to 60 FPS thing and the lower resolution with a 720p target. In dock mode, you can actually get to a pretty decent 40 to 60 FPS. There might be a couple boss fights when you get drops into the upper 30s in very rare occasions, but it's way smoother than locking it to 30. I mean, let's be honest here. So if we're going to go back, it's easy. We go into dock mode, which is way sharper, and we get the 30 FPS default thing back. And there we go. With the overclock, yeah, 30 FPS feels so wrong in this game. But hey, if you keep it the overclock, you can maintain 30s way more often. We're not CPU limited when targeting 30, and the game will stick to 30 way more often with a more consistent resolution. It's not 100% 1080p, but there we are. So I think it's time to show you handheld, which is super interesting, so one sec. Welcome back guys, now in handheld. Again, the target is 720p. This is stock settings. And let's run around the open world. Again, the only difference here is that the resolution target is 720 instead of 1080. And as you'll see, it's usually more stable because it's targeting a lower resolution, despite having lower clock speeds. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's impressive that this is running this well on the Switch. Yeah, I know, 30 FPS. But again, this game drops frames a lot on PS4 and Xbox One, so I think it's pretty impressive. So anyway, 30 FPS on handheld, 4 hours of battery, I think. Yeah, 97%, like 4 hours of battery, something like that. No overclock, no anything. Dynamic resolution, hits 720p, but not 100% of the time. And well, what to say, CPU is increasing the usage of a few of the cores, and the GPU is starting to get maxed out, so we're going to hit dynamic resolution, which is fine. So yeah, it's fine. There are places where it's going to drop, of course, but it's going to stay at 30 pretty often. So I think it's time to unlock the frame rate and see what we can do with it. Go. So we're in handheld mode, so the resolution is targeting 720. But we're going to add the 60 FPS mod that unlocks the frame rate and increase doing an overclock. So now the CPU is at a higher frequency, the GPU as well. And we're into the 50s, so it's harder to hit 60s in portable mode, of course. But that's fine. To be expected. And in this case, you're probably going to be between 30 and 60. It can feel a little bit inconsistent, but it's way smoother than lock 30s, that's for sure. So yeah, it drops below 60. But you can maintain above 30 pretty consistently with this overclock. The thing is, if you mind those drops, personally I rather have this unlock frame rate between 40 and 60 with minor drops into the 30s at times in very stress points. Because the game just feels that much better to control. That's my opinion, of course. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, impressive that this runs on Nintendo Switch, first of all, considering how it struggled on Xbox One. And well, it targets 900p on PS4. Image quality is pretty good. You can unlock the frame rate, but if you want to be anywhere close 60s, well, you need an overclock, definitely. For both the CPU and GPU. Portable mode targets 720p, but when we're targeting 60, the resolution drops below that. In the smaller screen, it's okay, looks fine, doesn't look super blocky or anything. which I think, again, is the best way to play the game. Even if you're playing docked, force handheld resolution, because dock mode targets 1080p, much harder on the GPU. And you'll basically have 40 to 60 FPS most of the time, which is not 100% perfect, of course, but beats playing at 30 FPS in my opinion. And well, what else to say? You can also overclock while keeping the 30 FPS target, which will mean a higher pixel count, even in stress points. But as you can probably see on the overlay, it's using 65% fan, which is rare for the Switch, but the temperatures are fine, and just sacrifice battery life, which was to be expected. Higher clocks, higher frame rates. So yeah, my advice would be that just keep it unlocked, overclock the Switch, keep it in handheld resolution, and have fun. And to close this video, we're taking a look at the desert, which still looks pretty good on Switch. Looks a little more flat, which again is to be expected.
Enemies approaching.
Enemies approaching. It's running better than I anticipated on the desert. I was expecting more drops. Oh, never mind. With the effects on screen, it drops into the 50s. But again, beats 1,000 times playing at 30, in my opinion at least. So yeah, those are your options. Please don't skip this game. It's wonderful. It's not only waifu bait. Please get over the characters and you'll have a lot of fun. Or don't get over the characters if you like that sort of thing. I mean, if I look at this game outside of playing it myself, I'll probably skip it, but I got it recommended so many times and it ended up being my favorite game. So do yourself a favor and play it. Please trust me on this one. And I think it's impressive that it targets 1080p in dock mode. You can get closer again by overclocking. But it's nice to, when developers do an effort, to get something to run the Switch. I mean, the hardware difference between the Switch, PS4 and Xbox One is huge. So I'm glad they did a great port on this one, at least in my opinion. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys. Thanks for watching.